every minute you got to be able to load and fire this thing 3 times.
Pretty fast, isn't it?
They did. They practiced doing this 2 to 3 hours every day. They practiced marching and loading their rifles and which way to point the rifles when they were shooting. And you draw your rammer.
Whoa, that's big.
Alright, I gotta get that one fixed. And then it's ram cartridge. You push the ball, you push it all, powder and everything down in there. Okay? Return rammer.
I don't know if many people.
How are you gonna get the thing in?
It'll come out. Okay. Alright? Anyway, once you return the rammer, it's primed. Bring the rifle up, bring it to half cock. And see this little pocket right here? He's gonna pull out a cap. Okay? And he's going to put it on what's called. Nope, that's to set it off. It's called the cap, like in a cap gun. You know when you put a cap on. Yep.
Like a poppet.
All right. So now you're ready to go. So now you're going to get the command of shoulder, arms. Now you're ready to fire. Took 9 times, 9 different steps to load this rifle. Now we can sit there and get the command of. Let's go ahead and at the right oblique or the left oblique. Ready? At the left oblique, aim, fire, boom. Now we go load again. Okay?
It went down in there like that. Open out.
Ironclad.
But they started off looking like that.
How much you have, then you put oil in if it's not empty.
Actually,
But that's just how you
That's a lot of beans. This is what the soldier had been given for one day. This is one day's food. This is breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you guys eat. You guys have a snack before you go to bed. Sometimes. Well, if you do, this would be your snack too. Anything you want to eat today, this is it. That's all the soldier was given. He was given his salt pork.
And is that a pound?
Yeah.
Guys and generals, they're out there.
Is coffee or tea, depending on which one you like to drink. Rice, your hardtack, sugar, sweet potato, or you can get regular potatoes, apples, onions, carrots. You know, the soldier would also go foraging.
And they could have coffee if they like this.
It has a Bible. And they've had different books for you. This is a prayer book. This is a song book. You know, and you had to know the tunes because all they gave you was the words.
So then, prior to that, the American bayonet drill was.
And it was with the first.
But I didn't have some more.
Kind of had to keep it going. What's that?
As the day goes on, this area, like
tent or whatever, they put their
They call it shebang.
and they button this thing up however they want to.
did that as well.
Almost as big as this piece of paper. Yeah.
Hey Peter, you know we have one of those at home.
You guys want to see what else you can see in there? What do you see?
That's why you see 2 blankets and 2 ground cloths and buttons together.
Where the canvas is oiled.
They had them waterproof. You got to carry this anyway, right? So you just draw the pictures on.
Now we'll go ahead and do our little program for you. The first person I'm going to introduce, his name is Jacob Roberts. He's a Mississippian, and his real name is Tom Allen, but he goes by Jacob Roberts, and he's going to tell you about his time in the Army in August of 1862.
Farm, wheelwright shop, my Martha, and my 5 children. Except my oldest boy now, he's done left, he's off serving in the 11th Mississippi. Presently, I am a volunteer soldier in Company H of the 6th Mississippi, and reckon I've been doing that just over 1 year now, with 2 more to go. Lest this war ends sooner, which I do pray every day that it does. Now in my regiment, we've only seen 1 engagement. Been about 5 months past now. I reckon I remember it mostly as a living hell right here on this earth. Its name was Shiloh. First night of that battle, we had just finished a wretched 25-mile march out of Corinth in the rain and the mud, and we was led off into an open field with woods out in front of it. The orders went out to us to be quiet, no campfires tonight. All you boys stay in your line and you just sleep on the ground there holding your muskets. Well, as we lay there in that cold, wet field that night, we knew sure enough there was going to be a quick fight come morning, because for all night long we could hear them Yankees' voices coming right out of them woods out there in front of us. We knew that they was close. Hours before the first light, our Colonel Thornton had us up, ready, muskets loaded. When we moved out in them there woods, that was my first sight I ever seen a Yankee. So their pickets, they was taking pot shots at us as they was from around the trees while they was running back to their own side of it. When we come, and our hearts were thumping at that point, but when we come through them trees, there was this hill. Now, top of that hill was a Yankee camp. Now, our Colonel Thornton, he didn't have to, before he even give us an order to charge up that hill, our blood was already boiling, and we was yelling like fury. We was wanting to get up there at them invaders and give them the licking they deserved for invading our homeland. So every man was ready for the charge. We went up that hill, and for too long, we met with the most God-forsaken musketry laid down by them Yankees up there. And for a short spell there, I thought I kicked over a hornet's nest coming up that hill for all the angry buzzing around my head. I was quick to learn it weren't no hornets at all. It was them Yankee mini balls whizzing past me. Then they poured into us with their cannon. Now, few words of mine could ever describe to you the horror of that battle. When you have cannon putting holes in your lines where your friends and your comrades were just moments before. And as we're up there on that hill, I'm loading and I'm firing and I'm praying, and I'm praying out loud as I'm loading and firing. Then I feel my good friend Joseph right here next to me. He grabs a hold of my shoulder as he falls down to the ground. And when I look down, I jump back as if I'd seen a demon from the lower regions, because the boy had his jaw ripped off from a Yankee shell and just his tongue left lolling on in front of his throat. And he was looking at me and his eyes was open. That boy died that night. Surgeons said, can't do nothing for him, so they laid him out by himself to die in agony all alone. When my regiment stepped out of them woods that morning, we numbered 425. By the time that whole bloody ordeal was over, we numbered 125 is still standing. I lost my two cousins I signed up with, both mortally wounded. We had 7 colored bears shot down. The last one being our own brave Colonel Thornton, and trying to rally what was the rest of my regiment to get through that Yankee camp. I somehow come through it all on a miracle of the Lord, I am sure. Now, I pray that none of y'all here, none of y'all, ever have to witness what shot and shell can do to a man. It could burn a hole in you right in here that comes around and haunts you at night, right out of your sleep, and you're seeing it all over again. My only prayer now, and I do pray it so, is that for as terrible and the carnage as that fight was, that it will somehow make an influence to end this war sooner. Well, I reckon y'all wonder then why I'm in this fight. Well, first off, I ain't got nothing against any of you all settlers out here in the territory. But now where I'm from, for as long as I can remember, y'all, there ain't been many kind words between North and South. With mostly the North looking down their noses at us. Their northern bakers get all the more greedy. Their tariffs they put on us go all the higher. Yankees, a breed that cares more about what lines their own pocket, and they worship them greenbacks like it was their own god. And these here northern abolitionists, the ones really stirring up all the trouble, they point the evil finger at the evilness of slave holding at us, but all the while they'll be turning a blind eye against the thousands and thousands of immigrants and foreigners that they keep in a servitude worse than slavery in their own factories and cities and living in slums. And now they want us to be just like them. Well, folks, where I'm from, in Itawamba County, none of us ain't got much. We sure ain't got no slave property on account of we just mostly poor farmers, sharecroppers, and some shopkeepers that would just as soon be left alone anyhow to run our own lives. Now, and I do know about what this here Declaration of Independence says about the power of the government derives its consent from the governed. Well, dog my cats then, because I wonder when they stop including us down south in that. We ain't the same as them, y'all. We never have been. And we sure ain't going to be ruled by some president clear up yonder there in Washington City. Now what I got, it ain't much. But what I got, I built with my own two hands and the good help of the Lord. It ain't no government, north, south, east, nor west, has a right to take it from me. And that, by God's the Lord's truth. I do apologize, y'all. I did not mean for this to turn into some fire-breathing sermon on the mount. I do apologize. After being a soldier here in the Army of the Mississippi, stay home. Don't do it. It ain't worth no bonus money. There sure ain't no glory in it. We was garrisoned up in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Miserable little spot. More than half the regiment fell sick. Measles, fever, pneumonia. Well, I reckon I even spent most of December flat on my back with a mustard plaster on my chest. My head swelled up tighter than Dick's hat band from the fever in some drafty barn that they done turned into a hospital. A lot of boys died from there too. Didn't make it out. Now come February, we get orders to move out of there and back down into Tennessee. Well, by then, at least many of us are able enough to walk by then. But now, no sooner we get on that road, start that march, the heavens opened up on us in the rain. And it weren't no Presbyterian sprinkler, y'all. It was a genuine Baptist downpour. It turned that road into so much mud that boys that could barely walk was getting stuck up to their waist in that mud and had to be plucked out by their friends along the way. All of our spring wagons that mostly had those still too sick to walk, all of them stuck, had to get left behind with a few comrades able enough to look after them boys to comfort them. And unless you want to have these here rags for clothes, for a suit of clothes, that you got to share with the fleas and the graybacks. Reckon if y'all don't know what graybacks is what you would call body lice, and we call them graybacks. Well, just last night I was so sick at them gnawing at me, I threw my shirt off over in the corner of that tent yonder, just to be free of them for a while. And come morning time, I look down at my shirt, and here it's kind of moving back and forth a little bit. Here I think a rat's got underneath it or something. So I go to pick up my shirt, it weren't no rat at all. It was the entire regiment of graybacks in search of a soldier. The worst of all in this here army is the food. There ain't never enough of it, and most of the time when we get it, it's done spoiled rotten. Bad beef and cornbread is our breakfast, supper, and dinner, y'all. While the last beef we got from our commissary was blue and sticky, smelled like the devil. I reckon if I threw a piece of it against that wall yonder, it would stick right there for the whole duration. Weren't even fit for a buzzard. We figure the next time we get beef like that, well, they'll be throwing in the hooves and the horns too. But we are thankful on occasion when we do our folks back at home that's able to send us packages, good sweet goods. Well, my Martha here last month, at least she was able to send me some good white bread, some molasses, sweet honey, and some half moon pies. Oh, I was a happy man for a long time there after that. Outside of that, we have been given permission to forage around the countryside. And let me tell y'all, any stray chicken, pig, or cow within 1 mile of our camp, it ain't safe and it ain't getting out either. But we're also able to go after small game, squirrel, possum, birds, sort. And being down still in our home state area, we got farmers that are kind enough to us that will try to help us out when we come around with hat in hand when they pulling in their crops for maybe whatever they can supply for, like field peas or potatoes and whatnot.
Corn if it's in the season.
That's right. So if and y'all want to look like a scarecrow and to starve, then come be a soldier. I'm going to get off this here stump now and get back to my duties in camp. I do thank you all for your attention. Thank you very much.
It's regular Army, February 1862.
What a way to celebrate a birthday. September 16th, 1862. I celebrated my birthday. I turned 30 years old. We heard the news from South Mountain that our forces were engaged with the enemy. The very next day, we would meet the Army of Northern Virginia outside a little town in Maryland called Sharpsburg. Now, being with the 4th Regiment, our unit was deployed along Antietam Creek. We were to be held in reserve. We sat there for most of the day on the east side of that little creek. Late in the day, we were ordered to cross with our fellow regiments across the middle bridge. We were to follow Captain John Pullen's 2nd Infantry Regiment, United States Regular Army, up a slight rise in front of Antietam Creek. We heard the guns. We knew earlier in the day that the Confederates had held their position against General Hooker's advance. We were to be the reserve, however, we had an opportunity. Apparently, General John Fitzporter had said, we can crack the enemy line, we can break right through, we could end the war. So we followed Captain Pullen's boys up the hill. Our 4th Regiment deployed as skirmishers at the top of the hill. We heard that Pullen's boys were pouring it hot into the Confederate lines, sweeping them from their entrenched positions behind a wood rail fence, and we were prepared to join them in routing the enemy. But for some inexplicable reason, our troops were told, our boys were told not to move. We stood there. We stood there at the top of that rise and we looked at the enemy. We watched him redeploy his men. We didn't see General Lee, but we saw his men move, strengthen their position, and we were told to turn around, proceed back across the creek, back to the positions that we had left earlier in the day. we were told another assault was planned elsewhere, and that we were to be held in reserve in case the Army should have to flee. We ended September 17th, 1862, in reserve. We didn't rout the enemy. The enemy left the field of battle. The generals shouted huzzah. We heard the attack by General Burnside had failed miserably. Apparently troops from A.P. Hill's Corps had come in the nick of time from Harper's Ferry and saved the day for the Confederacy. The war did not end on September 17, 1862. I never did celebrate my birthday. We simply went into reserve. Once again, I'm Private John Corcoran, United States Regular Infantry. That is the 4th Regiment, a regiment with a storied history. Now, I don't want to regale you with our Mexican War battle honors, or even going as far back as the Revolution and afterwards. I have to say the 4th Regiment, they're a good outfit. Although I can't say I know too many men outside my own company, I hail from Company A, you can see on my hat. I first joined the regular Army prior to this conflict. I joined them in the late 1850s. Born in Alton, Illinois, I didn't travel across the country by wagon. I did so by boat. I dropped out of school, deciding that book learning was not for me. I learned enough French and Latin for a lifetime. I decided to join my father, my mother, my brothers to the great Washington Territory. We left Alton, Illinois, Mississippi River being right there. We left by boat, passed the port of New Orleans, passed over the Isthmus of Panama in 1853. The territory was brand new. Opportunity was ripe for the taking. We arrived in 1854 in the Washington Territory. Actually came by way of the Columbia Bar, barely making it through with our lives. Arrived in Portland, crossed the river to Columbia, and proceeded by steamer up to Cowlitz. We arrived at Cowlitz Landing. From there, we arranged for wagons to seek out our donation land claim. We sought all over. Most of the best bottom land taken. Some of it occupied at that point by the old Hudson's Bay Company, the old British Fur Trapping Company, which at this point was now using much of the Puget Sound region as their private ranch. And Americans were flooding into the territory at that time. We sought land on a rather little-known place, been named after a great navigator, explorer, Mr. Joseph Whitney. We set up a claim on his island. But within no sooner than about a year, maybe a year and a half after establishing our claim, I wasn't married, so I was able to establish a 320-acre claim. Provided I stayed there 5 years, I could own it. However, in the year and a half of setting up my claim and trying to prove up on it, war broke out. Indian War. Now, I wasn't a member of the Army, nor did I have any plans to join the Army at that time, but something had to be done. People were building blockhouses all throughout the territory to defend themselves from Indian attack. So I joined the Washington Territorial Volunteers. We were part of a group formed in a small town. It's a little cluster of huts right there near Admiralty Inlet, a little place called Port Townsend. I joined what we called the Northern Battalion, established by Colonel Isaac Eby. He wasn't really a colonel, he was actually a captain, but called him all Colonel. We built a small fort on the Snohomish River, on a little island right there at the fork of the slough and the main river channel. Well, time passed, nothing happened. We had one gun, boat pulled up every other day. We had about a company of troops there, and we call ourselves a battalion, but we were really only a company. And we passed the winter of 1855 and spring of 56.
You guys are doing nothing.
Nothing. We barely drilled. The island was barely big enough for a morning parade. But we did well, had a good time. And when we found that the war had concluded, not a shot was fired. And we'd fire a few salutes from the cannon occasionally. But the idea was we were to prevent warriors, Klickitat warriors, from traveling down the Snohomish River via the Snoqualmie and attacking the settlements from the north. Well, that never happened. And so when that winter ended, so did my enlistment to Washington Territorial Volunteer Militia. I realized at that point, wasn't sure what was to do next. The war had caused tremendous inflation in the region. Prices for simple things were well beyond my reach. Didn't seem like a railroad was going to be coming soon. Couldn't make a go of it. I wasn't really much of a farmer, didn't know much about farming anyways. So in a sense, I bid my family goodbye, and I enlisted in the regular army. There at Fort Steilacoom, I enlisted at that point, was assigned to Company A of the 4th Regiment. No sooner had I arrived at Fort Steilacoom at the end of that conflict that we were asked to move. Company A was asked to build a fort out on the Pacific coast. We would name it Fort Chehalis. For a brief time, we were deployed to San Juan Island just prior to the current conflict. Apparently some disagreement over swine. We were there with some of our other companies on that island. We were there for just a short time, maybe 3 months or so before the conflict ended. It was really more up to the territorial officials and the government more than anything. General Scott, however, visited the region. It was very exciting. But no sooner that conflict ended than 1861, we heard that war clouds were brewing, and the war had begun in the summer. We knew as soon as the first shots were fired in April 1861, and then of course the first major battle, we heard reports in July of 1861, a major fight had occurred in Northern Virginia. We knew that it was a matter of time that before the regular army would be deployed to take part in that conflict. The initial rumors were that our regiment, the 4th Regiment, was spread up and down the Pacific coast, and that of the 9th Regiment were to leave the coast and were to deploy to Virginia, where we would fight the rebels. We packed everything up, began to concentrate the regiment. In fact, we took a boat trip down to San Diego. Companies of the regiment began to gather and load ships. We heard news that the 9th Regiment, all just about ready to move out, was given orders to stay. I know those boys were disappointed. I knew they wanted to do their duty. I knew they wanted to get into the fight. They were good men, good officers, but their role was to protect the Pacific coast, so they stayed. But our 4th Regiment, we left the West Coast in the fall of 1861, and we would arrive in New York in November of 61. And there, our regiment and other regular Army regiments were put together in a single group, a single division, the regular division. We meet them in the cold on the Rappahannock River, the battlefield we call Fredericksburg, the town of Fredericksburg, which our 4th Regiment, we engaged the enemy in fierce combat. We would survive that assault. We would recover from that. Some say it was a defeat. I say we never left the field. We simply went into winter quarters, overlooking that battlefield of which many thousands died. This has been a hard war. I don't know how much longer the regular army can survive in this war. You see, we regulars, we don't offer any bonuses. There is no incentive to join. No one's going to get any honors. No one's going to get any extra money. In fact, all the state units, they're offering people $500 to join their units. Ours, we get nothing. Some of our best officers, they've taken volunteer commissions. They've gone from captain to general in record time. A lot of our officers are new ones, straight out of the military academy or from civilian life. Some have been pretty decent, others poor. All we see is our ranks thinning. As this war goes on, every time we lose a man, no one fills his place. Our company, which at one point, with its greatest strength, had 68 men. We're down to 35. Another big fight, that'll be the end of us. When my enlistment is up, will I stay with the regular army? I don't know. The bonus money sounds mighty enticing. But I'm no mercenary. I'm here to support the flag of the United States. The unity, the great nation that we are. I'm here to protect that from those who would seek to tear it apart. Thank you for your time.